How old is old enough to be on X or on Instagram or even on WhatsApp? A two-judge bench of Justices G. Narendra and Vijay Kumar Patel of the Karnataka High Court, while hearing an appeal by X Corporation, formerly Twitter, has raised that extremely important question. While hearing that case, Justice Narendra orally observed that the central government may have to bring a minimum age of 21 to be on social media. The bench lamented that school children were addicted and also asked, and I quote, "What maturity do children aged 17 to 18 have to judge what is in the interest of the nation?" Important questions there. What maturity do they have to know what they are sharing could be long lasting? So should there be a minimum user age on social media? That's the question that we are raising this evening. And joining us in this conversation, N.S. Nappinai, advocate at the Supreme Court; Anand Kumar, the founder of the famous Super 30, whose work inspired the film Super 30; RTC Rajaratnam, child psychologist; and also with us Ayana Bhatia, a teenager from the School of Modern Media at UPS Dehradun. Before I go to the older amongst the panelists to discuss what age should be there or if there should be a minimum age, let me first come across to you, Ayana Bhatia. Do you think you're old enough to be on social media? You're actually studying modern media there in that School of Modern Media at UPS Dehradun. Do you think you're old enough to be on social media? What age did you get on it? And can you even live without it today? Ayana, can you hear me? Well, we'll try and go across to Ayana first. If I can, now we'll try and go across to Ayana in a bit, but let me go across to Aarti Rajaratnam. Ma'am, as a child psychologist, is there an age, should we have a minimum user age for kids to enter social media?
See, technically, they already tell you that it's 18 years before which you can have an account. But I'd like to make a very important point here. Age is not the criteria. It has to be how much regulation or self-regulation the person already has. By those standards, if you look at it, most Indians don't have self-regulation even at 26. So having said that, it's a minimum age that bench has suggested is 21. I think it would be a good place to start. Primarily because, one, as a psychologist and also because I work with a lot of schools, I notice the havoc that social media is creating on several fronts. One, it is affecting learning, it is affecting focus and attention, and more importantly, it's affecting the relational dynamics that children, especially teenagers, have. If you notice, teenagers need a lot of experiences with the peer group, and almost most of that has been diminished because of the use of social media, where people have started becoming used to virtual friends instead of relating to people in person. I think these have very long-term mental health consequences, which I'm more worried about.
Aarti, important point that you made there at the start of your, of your answer was that there is a minimum age that's there, and that's the question I want to take to Nappinai. While there is a minimum age that we often see for somebody to open an account, it's rarely followed, and you have kids even doing, 3-year-old kids doing TikTok, 11-year-old kids being on Instagram.
Absolutely true. So if you look at the way law functions, it provides a minimum, and if you look at the terms and conditions of each of these websites, they will tell you the process by which you're supposed to sign in. So for instance, the new data protection law, DPDP, Digital Personal Data Protection Law, it specifically provides for parental supervision if a child or a minor is supposed to be online. So the modality will be left to the platform. For instance, it may be that a verification will be done through a mobile number, etc. But the critical issue here is, I feel that the genie is out of the bottle. It is very difficult for you to pull back, and 21 may be a bit of a stretch. If you're looking at it in terms of minor, then we are talking about 18. But predominantly and globally, if you look at it, the age for accessing social media would invariably be 13. So between 13 to 18 is the parental guidance aspect. What you were talking about of 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds having TikTok videos is what the parents are doing, or somebody who knows the child. So I think the time is right now for people to understand concepts of privacy understand the risks and threats that are there online, including even with respect to a very innocuous or an innocent video that may be uploaded, and be a little bit more judicious in how they use social media. Closing out, there was a very interesting case under the GDPR where a mother filed a case against a grandmother, saying the grandmother cannot share the picture of her child on social media. This is how strong personal data protection is going globally.
Right, important and a great anecdote there. But Anand Kumar, you deal with a cross section of kids, teenagers in society. What's your own sense when you see what is possibly the most disturbing aspect that you see of the impact of social media on young minds? And do you believe that there has to be an age cap for entry? And if yes, what would be the age cap?
बहुत अच्छा ये मुद्दा उठाया गया है। इस पे मेरा मानना है कि एकदम से एज का लिमिटेशन होना बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि हम तो देखते हैं बच्चों को पढ़ाने वक्त और पूरे समाज में देखते हैं कि बच्चे इंस्टाग्राम रहे या यूट्यूब रहे और कई ऐसी चीजें हैं जिसमें अपना समय बर्बाद करते हैं। तो इसलिए एक स्कैन जरूर होना चाहिए कि बच्चा 18 साल या उससे बड़ा हो। हम तो और भी आगे की बात बोलना चाहेंगे कि बहुत सारा एडल्ट साइट है, बहुत सारी ऐसी साइट है शराब की और कई ऐसी साइटें हैं जो बच्चे देखते रहते हैं और उससे प्रभावित होते हैं, उस पर भी बैन होना चाहिए। कुछ न कुछ ऐसी सरकार को व्यवस्था करनी चाहिए कि आधार कार्ड के आधार पर बच्चा उसको एक्सेस कर सके इंटरनेट, और तब उसमें अपने आप नेचुरल 18 ईयर से बड़ा होता है बच्चा तो वो उन चीजों को एक्सेस कर पाए। अदरवाइज एक्सेस के लिए उन्हें रोकना ही पड़ेगा सरकार को। मेरे समझ से बहुत लोग समय बर्बाद करते हैं। अभी एनडीटीवी पर अगला मेरा दी आनंद कुमार शो इसी मुद्दे पर।
I know, that's on NDTV India. You will have the Anand Kumar show where you will discuss just this issue. But going across now to Ayana Bhatia, I believe we can go across to her, and the connectivity issues have been sorted, Anand. Ayana, do you think, I began by asking you, do you think you're old enough to be on social media? A. B. Can you live without it? And what age did you get on social media in the first place?
Hi, Veera. Thank you so much for having me today. I was 15 when I got on social media, and no, I actually cannot live without it. It's a sad thing to admit, but like I can't live without it. I have grown up in an age where social media is so prevalent and just everywhere. So I do not think that it's good for me right now. Even though I'm 19 right now, I still don't think that, having being on social media without any restrictions is good for me. I have seen 10-year-old girls compare themselves to supermodels and actresses on the internet, and I think it is so damaging and very, very detrimental to them. I think social media is making kids lose their innocence because of the constant comparison and the toxicity. And the internet is also very ruthless. It never forgets, nor does it forgive. So even a tiny mistake could be amplified 1,000-fold. So I do think that social media should have an age limit.
And so what would be the age limit you'd say? 21? Or is that a stretch?
21 is a little older. I think after 19 is good because you still kind of have some social awareness and, you are able to navigate your way through the internet, but no, nothing below 18.
Aarti, there is a lot of talk about life satisfaction and several studies that talk about, kids on social media end up not feeling satisfied with their lives. There are lots of emotional issues as well. Quickly, if there was an age that you would say, yes, this is it, this is where we should put it apart, should that be decided on a cultural, sort of ethnic, in terms of sociological lines, or should it be a generic age cap for the entire world?
It should definitely be sociological, considering the fact that each culture affects, has different child rearing practices. And therefore, the better way in looking is in cultures which are very relationship oriented, social media needs to come in much later, because we need to build the foundation on our relationships before we take children away from those relationships which are their safety net and the thing that brings about their regulation balance. So I hope that sort of answers your question.
Oh, absolutely. Anand, when you see, are there any specific cases that you're seeing in terms of trends among students on a day-on-day basis when you talk to them? Something that you believe really should be learnt by everybody to understand the negative or perhaps the impact social media has on these kids and the way where their thinking process operates?
मेरा मानना तो सही है। देखिए, आजकल सोशल मीडिया का जो यूज हो रहा है वो इस तरह से है। आप टीनेजर्स की अभी आप बात कर रहे थे, ऐसे ऐसे यूज है कि मैं देखकर आश्चर्यचकित रहता हूँ। छोटे छोटे बच्चों को आजकल लोग कोई ड्रामा करके, कोई एक्टिंग करके उसका वीडियो सोशल मीडिया पर डाल रहे हैं ताकि लाइक आए, व्यू आए और उससे उनके पास पैसे आए। ये देखकर पूरा समाज में, मैं देखता हूं अपने समाज में बच्चों को, अब सब लोग वीडियो बना रहा है, डाल रहा है, उसका मकसद नहीं जान रहा है, अपने पढ़ाई से, अपने मकसद से, अपने करियर से वो बहुत दूर चला जा रहा है। तो पेरेंट्स का भी इस पर बड़ा हाथ होता है कि वो ग्लैमराइज करके अपने बच्चों को सोशल मीडिया पर बेच रहे हैं, ऐसा भी एक तबका है। तो मेरा ये मानना है ओवरऑल, और मेरा ये कंक्लूजन है कि इसमें गवर्नमेंट को एक सख्त कदम उठाने की जरूरत है। साथ साथ पेरेंट्स को भी इस बात को समझना होगा कि अपने बच्चों को समझाएं, और साथ साथ सबसे बड़ी बात है तो बच्चों को, युवाओं को समझना होगा कि अपनी बहस बिना मतलब के विषयों के लिए, बिना मतलब के चीजों पर जाना, ये सब बंद करें और अपने काम पर ध्यान दें। हाँ, जरूरत है सामाजिक होने की, समाज से सरोकार रखने की, इसकी भी जरूरत है, लेकिन हर चीज का एक वक्त होता है और एक समय होता है।
Right, Ms. Napinai, we've heard all different points of view in this. Now, when we say social media, what are we talking about? Are we including every form of social media? Because ultimately, even a messaging service like WhatsApp would come under the large definition of social media. Should a kid be regulated there, or should we then further subdivide the social media universe?
So I may be the lone voice here, but I don't think any of these solutions of off with their head is really going to work, because it's not just about it being impractical, but legally you have to understand social media is also a positive tool. So when you talk about age gating and use of law for the purpose of age gating, you will still balance it with reasonable restrictions. You won't go overboard in terms of either banning or allowing. It's not like a black and white situation. So the way I would look at it, if I'm talking about regulating and not about banning, and that's the way I would ideally want to look at this situation, and that will primarily be contingent on what we are age gating, what kind of content in terms of access are we age gating, are we going to age gate in terms of sharing of content, or are we going to just block out every aspect in terms of even availability of information, exercise of free speech? Are we now saying children don't have their right of free speech and expression, which is a fundamental right? So we have to understand that when we take into account concerns, we have to balance it with the requirements in terms of how the medium works, but do so with responsibility and caution. And that's what, in fact, Cyber Sati has been working on in terms of creating awareness and making children aware and make them the peer mentors who will speak to adults in terms of safety. Not to just cut out the umbilical cord.
Okay. All right, cut out the umbilical cord. We are talking of social media in terms of an umbilical cord here. But my final question to you, and a very quick answer, Ayana. Do you know anyone who is not on social media in your generation, A, and B, who is the who amongst your friends is the youngest one to have got onto social media? Quick answer to that.
I do not know anybody who's not on social media, because it's 2023, everybody's on social media, and I think the youngest friend that I have is 13. She's my Twitter friend. I met her when she was 13, so she's 13 right now.
Well, I'm not sure if it's if any age is mature enough to not be on social media at the moment, given the world that we're living in. But thank you all for sharing your thoughts on an extremely important question. Well, there has to be regulation, as argued by Napinai, and as Anand vehemently says, there needs to be governmental intervention to ensure that there is a minimum age for someone to enter on social media. We'll keep conversations going on that subject. That's all we have time for here. The news continues here on NDTV.